Hi everyone, my name is Courtney and today I'm going to be doing my October wrap-up. So I read a good amount of books in the month of October, so very proud about that. A lot of big books, working on a specific reading vlog, working on a couple things actually, but also gearing up to make another round of reviews of some of the recent books that I've read, so stay tuned for that. But we're just going to cover basics of what I read in October. First, we're going to start off with my manga as always, and then we will get into the novels. So first I have Witch Hat Altair Kitchen to be precise. This is the spin-off series of Witch Hat Altair, and it is comfy and cozy and just so wonderful. And it's basically the characters from Witch Hat cooking, having a great little family time. All of the recipes are made with magical ingredients, but you can technically follow the recipes with substitutions. And the series is just really cute, really wholesome. This is the last book that has been produced so far. It's been a couple years though since they've made any of these, so I'm not sure if this is going to continue, but I really like this series and it's been a really great reprieve to read between some of my bigger books. So yes, great series. I'm looking at my stack and I pretty much read all fantasy this month. Besides one book, I read one horror book, and that was Hampton Heights by Dan Coyce. I read this with my work book club thing. We don't really have a meeting in a club, but we have a book that we read sometimes and then discuss. And for Halloween, obviously, we picked a horror, and this is technically categorized as horror, but I don't really feel like it is horror. It is in some respects, but it's almost like a dark fairy tale type of story. Basically, Hampton Heights is a suburb. It's either like Minnesota or Wisconsin. Rural Midwest, but next to a bigger city. And basically, it's about these paper boys who are going on this extra route thing, trying to get subscribers, and the boys pair up to, go door to door to try and sell these subscriptions, and it's kind of each of their little stories of their adventures in Hampton Heights. So one is a werewolf story, one is more of a horror monster story, and one of them is more of a darker fairy tale, but is pretty wholesome. So there's a range here. For me, this book was just okay. It was interesting. I actually thought the descriptive writing was very good. I thought that he had just very specific images, which really made the story really specific, if that makes sense. I just thought his level of craft detail was really well done. But this is taking place with 13-year-old boys, and there's a lot of 13-year-old boy humor, which didn't really bother me. It was fine. I thought this taking place in the late 80s, early 90s was really interesting and added to it. But overall, I felt like these stories didn't really mesh together as well as I wanted it to. I wanted there to be a little bit more of connection between the stories. And my biggest flaw for this is that it doesn't really set us up into this world. You're just on this paper route, something as bad is going to happen because you're entering a horror book, but it doesn't really set you up for horror stuff to happen, especially because this horror is mostly more the fairy tale monsters kind of horror. So I wish there was more an allusion to oh, we're going to this dangerous place. This is not just a poor neighborhood, there's weird things that happen here, and setting up the haunted feel, this is a haunted place. And I felt that kind of setup, if we had more of that, could have set us up for these individual adventures. So overall, it was just fine. It was a fun book to read for Halloween, fun book to read and discuss. So it was a 3 out of 5 stars for me, just very fine. So I guess I'm just gonna go in order of least favorite to favorite. So we're gonna start off with my least favorite book. And I have to tell you, this might be my least favorite book of the year. This was so incredibly bad, and that is The Nightmare Before Christmas. I was so looking forward to this book. This is a rom-com with a very fantastical twist. In this world, there are basically families that run holidays, and they kind of have elite nobility status. And this book is our Christmas prince dealing with a lot of the political drama of Christmas and a lot of the weird stuff that's going under the surface, but also kind of falling in love with the Halloween prince at the same time. I've seen a lot of people dislike this book and blaming it on the marketing, it wasn't marketed well. I think people are saying that it was too marketed rom-com-y and this is a lot more fantastical. I don't think the marketing was the problem. I think this book is just bad. The writing was just so bad. The plot was so bad. There were so many things that I personally would have done differently to really streamline this, and on top of it all, the world building, the fantasy elements were so nonsensical. I remember entering this book, reading the first 100 pages, and I'm I'm just not getting into this, but it's silly, it's goofy, it's over the top, nothing makes sense, but you know what, I'm having a good time because the characters are just being bisexual disasters and I can get into that. But as it went on and on, it just like was getting more nonsensical and I'm like, okay, this isn't even enjoyable anymore. And then 200 pages in, we finally get to the smutty stuff and oh my god, it was so unbelievably cringy. These characters barely even know each other and like we're already saying I love you to each other. It was just so perplexing and just like badly done. And to be honest, like I am not a prude, but if I don't connect with the characters, like I cannot read overly sexual scenes of them. Like it's just so weird. And these characters like throwing daddy around was just like, ooh, cringe. Like it just got really weird, really cringy, really fast. I skipped most of the sex scenes. I was skimming over them because I was like, you know what, this adds nothing to the plot, it's fine. But I made it through this book and yeah, even skipping those sex scenes, like nothing else was good. Like the political stuff was not good. The family dynamic stuff, while interesting, probably my favorite part of this, again, was not well done and well executed. Book writing wise was bad, plot wise, just everything was bad. This is like a 2 out of 5 stars for me. It's not a 1 because it wasn't like offensive, but this was not good. And I want to say that this evolved from a fan fiction because I'm like looking at these characters and I'm like, maybe Clance from Voltron, but not really. Maybe the characters from Carry On. Like I'm trying to pin down who this author wrote fan fiction for and like where she got these characters from because they feel so familiar, but I'm like, can't quite pin down who it is. Maybe it's Drary, I don't know, but like that's what it felt like, but like not even good fan fiction, you know? If you're gonna give me fan fiction-y plot and writing, give me good fan fiction because this is not good fan fiction, you know? So yeah, I want to do a review of that one because I have thoughts and opinions, obviously. But the next book we're gonna discuss is The Oleander Sword by Tasha Suri. This is kind of pitched as morally gray, women-led fantasy with a sapphic romance, and this is also Indian-inspired. In this world, we have an oppressive kingdom that has been coming in and like taking over a bunch of different provinces and kingdoms. In the first book, our main character, Malini, is a outcast princess because she does not want to sacrifice herself for the greater good of her kingdom by doing like a self-sacrificial ritual. She was a political power in her own right against her brother, the king, but that has kind of come crashing down once she is exiled, and in exile she is meeting a woman from another kingdom in this oppressed kingdom where basically all of their art and creation and religion is being stripped from them. She has some connections with the religion and with the magic of the religion, and in this book we're getting more of the court intrigue, we're getting more of how these different religions and magic systems come to be, and unfortunately this book was like a little bit too late. It is very slow plot-wise, but like not in the good, slow, agonizing way, just in a nothing is happening sort of way. And about 75% of the way, we finally get some answers to how things work. And again, it just felt a little bit too late for me. I've been wondering things and I felt like a lot of those stuff should have been delivered in the first book and that those things should have been expanded and maybe gotten twists in the second. I want to like the characters, but again, they're not given a lot of depth or room to play necessarily. They're not as morally gray as they want to be, I feel like. The romance is very insta-lovey in my opinion. This isn't a bad fantasy book. I think it's very middle of the road, very 3-star. The writing I think is good. The characters, the world is interesting. It's just not fully fleshed out to me personally. I'm always just waiting for things to be better grounded, but the series is just kind of surface level fantasy for me. It's fine. The next 2 books I read were The Last Graduate by Naomi Novik and The Golden Enclave by Naomi Novik. This is the second and the third book in the Scholomance trilogy, so I have finished off the Scholomance series now. I was really working on my series this month, as you can see. So A Deadly Education is the first book in this series. This is dark academia, actual dark academia, like it's actually trying to make points about like the colonial and imperial underbelly of academia. It is dark academia also because it takes place in a magical school, but this magical school is out to kill people, and the students there are just trying to survive. That is basically the first book and a lot of the second book, and then the third book is kind of taking place outside the school, but still dealing with the problems of the Scholomance. And this is for a very particular person, and that person is me, at least at this moment. I was really looking for a book that had really good world building, or at least very in-depth world building, and this definitely has it. This book is in first person and it's very much just the main character's stream of consciousness talking at you, explaining things, and that's what I wanted. I just really wanted a world to feel fleshed out. I really wanted the world to feel like it was first priority for an author, and this definitely does that. I personally really like the main character. She's very like grumpy and just like does not want to be there, does not want to deal with people, but has like a very soft inner core. And I like her, and I like her friends, and I like her love interest, and I just like her explaining things at me. So yeah, I finally got a fantasy book with world building, so yay me. I was in kind of a weird state when I was reading this one, so I didn't love it quite as much as the first two, but I'm still giving both of these 4 stars, and I would say it's a 4-star series overall if you particularly connect with the characters and you like the writing style. I know it's not going to be for everybody, but I don't know, I just really liked how the metaphors really came together because it is more of an abstract understanding of stuff. But yeah, this book is basically just like dealing with trauma. Created trauma in the first 2 books, and now we have to deal with it, kind of. I would read the first chapter, see if you like the first chapter. If you think you can deal with that, go ahead and read the series, because I read this in like a month, so I was really invested. And then my final book of the month is going to be my favorite book, and that is The Adventures of Amina AlSarafi, which I gave like a 4.5 stars to. This is by Shannon Chakraborty. This is my first Shannon Chakraborty book, and I can just say that I love this. I love her writing, and I'm really excited to read City of Brass series. But this is historical fantasy, and it takes place in the 14th century? It takes place early. That's what I know. Like right at the Crusades time, I think, or like right after one of the first Crusades. It's obviously taking place in like the Middle East. In the map, it's calling it the Arabian Sea, which I think is the Indian Ocean. Like it's taking place in like that kind of region between Africa, the Middle East, and India. And we have a older main character who has sworn off her piracy, who is now dedicated to God and just like living the small life that she has now. And of course, she's getting pulled back into the piracy life, leaving her daughter behind, getting up to all kinds of hijinks, meeting her like ex-husband and dealing with all that, but also dealing with monsters and magic and just like all these things that take this like very little task, this one little piracy thing that she's supposed to do that's gonna make a lot of money, and then taking it and blowing it up into this like year-long expedition. So this is the first book. It finishes off in a way that you could just read this one, but there is more to come. But I really liked this. I wanted pirates, I wanted like swashbuckling heroes, I wanted just fun adventure, and this delivered it, but it also had like this great historical detail. The author is just a really great writer and really sets you in the scene, really just has a lot of really good detail, a lot of really great characters interacting. I loved seeing a more middle-aged woman being a pirate and loving that. There were a couple points in this book that stumbled a little bit for pacing. There's one point where they go to this magical island that I felt like maybe should have been earlier in the story, or just like didn't quite fit in the place that it was in the book. Felt a little bit out of nowhere. Maybe could have had a little bit more build up to it. That maybe would have helped. And then the other thing is that while being a pirating book, there's not a lot of on the boat time. A lot of the time is spent like on other plot things. So I'm really looking forward to hopefully getting some more boat time in the future. I would especially recommend reading this as an audiobook. I really loved the audiobook narration. There's kind of like fourth wall breaks, which just works really, really well having it like narrated to you. So that was really great. But yeah, this is one of the best books that I've read so far this year. It was just so much fun, so enjoyable. Again, another world that felt really fleshed out. So yeah, it's definitely joining the ranks of some of my favorite books of the year. It was just really good. But those are going to be all the books that I read in October. I would love to know what you read this month, what you enjoyed. Are you planning on picking up any of these, or have you read them? I would love to know. But thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys later, and happy reading!